and welcome to my 8th episode of Showing Up with Pam. I am very excited. I have two great guests for you, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce them now. First, we have Mark Saum. Mark is an experienced technology leader with a strong background in both cloud and traditional IT infrastructure designs. He combines a strong understanding of business, the ability to see the big picture, and the hands-on technical skills of an engineer. He has extensive experience in both large, high transaction environments with architecture roles at industry leaders as well as high growth startups. He excels in leading complex architecture projects such as solution implementations, mergers and acquisitions, and IT consolidation. With excellent communication skills, he also authors strategic architecture plans, writes technical standards, writes software in several languages, and has performed analysis of complex system architectures. And he's also a keynote speaker. And the couple that I have listed here are DevOps Beijing in May of 2018. I'm a little jealous he didn't take me with him to Beijing, but that's okay. And then NT97, IIR-NT Institute in Stockholm in Sweden in December 1997. And my next guest is also excited to be here, and I'm happy to have him. His name is William Red Davidson. It's funny because I know his name is Red, but whenever I try to find him, you have to find his name, but I have to remember that it's the whole thing connected to see him. He is a freelance agile coach from Plano, Texas. He coached at large enterprises, including Computer Associates Technologies, Frontier Communications, Citigroup, Toyota, and Chase. He's been writing software for money since 1983, where he then puts, whoa, that's a long time. I agree. He's held many positions: development manager, project or program manager, scrum master, and PMO lead. He's received awards in business development, including the Business Development Quality Award for Excellence. He's written papers and articles and presented at more than 80 conferences. Holy cow, Red, that's great. And user group meetings. As an agile coach, Red helps teams and their organizations achieve the benefits of agile software delivery. Welcome, Mark and Red.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Doing
Another
great.
beautiful day.
I'm so excited. Okay, so we start with my standard kickoff question. And I want to know who has been showing up for you guys, given all that's going on in the world. And I guess we'll just go Mark and Red and we'll circle back. So that would make it easier. So what would you say, Mark? Who's showing up for you?
Well, lately it's been my girlfriend. She's an inspiration to me. She grew up under communism and dealt with a lot of adversity in her life. Spent a long time as a single mother and as an entrepreneur. And to see her, thriving very well in the United States and just being an exceptional business owner and leader has been a real inspiration. And to do well through everything that we're seeing right now with unprecedented economic and social uncertainty, it's been an inspiration.
Oh, that's great. What about you, Red?
Man, there are just so many people who are showing up for all of us. Just so that we can get groceries, just so that we can make sure the power is on, the telecommunications is working, all those people. But, where I gain a great deal of energy is in the conversations that we have at, say, the meetup meetings. And so the people who have not let this pandemic say, okay, well, we just can't meet anymore, so we're going to give it up. All the leaders who are in the process of trying to secure speakers who can get them to come in and adapt to the online way of doing business and still provide that voluntary service to the community and say, okay, let's talk about agile leadership. Let's talk about DevOps. Let's talk about whatever it happens to be.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. I like that. All right. So you guys have worked, as I've mentioned in your intros, with countless C-level leaders, different organizations and stuff. So I want to ask you both individually what you feel like some of our leadership out there are doing well and where you feel like there's definitely some opportunities for improvement. You want to start with that one, Mark?
Yeah, I think one of the things is, transformation is hard. Whether it's you're bringing a new team together in a startup and you're trying to build out a culture. or you're in an existing organization and you're trying to move that. And I think we're beginning to realize a large part of successful transformation is around behaviors and culture, right? A lot of times that people culture that you build up is what results in either positive outcomes or negative outcomes, how you interact with people, and so how communication happens throughout the organization. And that's really hard to do when you've got work to do, right? You're trying to just get through the day. And I think that's where a lot of these methods, Rod is one, and there's some others out there that allow you to begin to kind of chip away at that problem is really critical. But I think that's just hard. I think that's the biggest challenge that faces C-level leaders.
Okay. What do you think, Red?
Basically it's the same thing as Mark. The number one problem is the opportunity. There are just so many opportunities for us to change the world, and some of them are waiting for permission. There's a new CI coming in, therefore they have to wait and see what the new guy says before they actually move forward. I know I'm supposed to be in charge of the transformation, but I have to wait for my director to tell me it's okay to do this thing before we actually do this thing. There's just a lot of fear in some of these very hierarchical organizations, and I just don't see the higher levels of leadership enabling folks to move forward, to experiment, to try things, and at the end of the day, learn from it, and then broadcast that learning through the organization.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay. So 2020 has definitely been an interesting and unusual, and I don't even know what adjective to use at this point, but way different than we expected. So what I'd like to ask you is kind of maybe what your biggest lesson has been so far in 2020. What do you say, Mark?
Wow. So I'm not going to claim to have any prescience, but I will say that I had a feeling for whatever reason, and I ended up seeing some sentiment charts from last year Q4 in terms of spending and savings, right? Indicating that there was a lot of concern as to what was going to happen in 2020. And it's interesting. So I don't claim any kind of special knowledge, but I had a feeling that 2020 was going to be challenging in the business environment. I had no idea what that actually meant, right? What we're facing now in terms of a total transformation in terms of how we do business, that actually like work from home was going to become not just a way of doing things, but almost an imperative. I guess that it's the reminder that culture and the environment around you can change, and oftentimes does change in catastrophic and unexpected ways, right? We see that in the earth and things like geography, right? We see indications of, hey, at some point, we have this Grand Canyon that was created, and geology is telling us now that didn't happen over millions of years. It literally happened over a very short period of time with massive amounts of water coming through, right? So you see that kinds of thing, the flow of things through society can just move much quicker than you're able to really react and fully understand it.
I agree.
Doesn't happen often, but when it does.
Yeah, indeed. What do you think, Red?
I'm really surprised at how resilient people are. So especially we're lucky enough to be in the area where knowledge work is allowed to be done at home. So many folks were able to continue doing what they've always done. It's just a little bit different. You have to find a way to adapt and get the job done. The big question now is for big companies. Revenues are definitely coming down. So that means budgets are coming down. So that now it's the challenge of those who in the traditional product set mentality. I've only got so much budget. It's getting smaller. So what is the most the largest imperative that I can execute that will return the highest value return, whatever that happens to be? And so it's going to be interesting to see how companies do pivot as they go into this world. We thought we were only going to be in this for a couple of months. It was going to blow over. Everything's fine. Now we're thinking it's looking like 9 months, a year, maybe longer before we really get through this.
I'm just letting that sit in a minute. When you said 9 months or a year, I don't know that I had projected that far out. So, okay. Next question. So, I wanted to bring up the Harada class that we actually kind of got to know each other in. Mark and Red were in the class that I took in 2018, where we learned how to set a goal and kind of set up some foundation and some support to actually achieve it, as well as doing a deep dive and kind of how we rated ourselves in certain categories and how we saw ourselves and so forth. So I guess my question to you, because I know I've had a gigantic effect from the class, and everyone sort of takes away from it different pieces and nuances. So I'm curious if there's any takeaways that you received from that, if there was any kind of eye-opening things you've learned, just kind of what your feeling was post-class. Mark.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, it's a reminder through it's the same theme I think we've been talking about, that process and discipline is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the foundation to success in life. It's the foundation to success in business. And it was interesting to hear the stories of how Harada came about and the transformations that it had in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's such an amazing, important story that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, if you can learn how to discipline your life, starting there with the smallest unit, which is you. You can literally change the world.
Great. Huge.
Yeah.
All right, Red, what do you say?
To echo that, whether it's the Harada method or the 4 disciplines of execution, they all talk about you have to have that goal and you have to make daily movement towards that goal. And if you're not doing that, what's the point? Harada is very prescriptive about how are you doing this on a daily basis? How are you doing this on a weekly basis? These check-ins. And so it's a way for you to self-monitor. And the question is, will you be true to yourself? Will you be honest with yourself and say, I had that piece of pie when I really shouldn't have? You got to have that kind of discipline and take it from there. And the thing I love about Harada is that it talks about the whole. It's not just your business goals, it's also your personal goals. And if I remember right, it's slightly skewed towards the personal side. So it's making sure that when you're achieving your goal, whatever that happens to be, you're also taking care of yourself, mental, physical, emotional, all that stuff. And I really like that part.
I like that. So my next question is, I'm curious as to why when we went around the room and we talked about our goals and I had the courage enough to actually mention mine, why you guys were like arms up volunteering to help me. What kind of thought process in that? Because I remember the stunned look on my face where these guys are like, oh, you can come do this. And I thought, why are you helping me? So what kind of inspired you to do that, Mark?
So I loved your energy. I mean, I saw that number one, that what Nigel was talking about really resonated with you, and I saw that you were kind of at a I think a point in your life where you're like, I really have some things I want to do, and now I've got a framework in which to achieve some very, very difficult things. You've achieved some quite a bit in your life in the past, and very, very difficult things, and now you're kind of on a little bit different journey.
Right.
But you're realizing there's a lot of those same principles apply. And so you just really kind of, I guess, what you were looking to do resonated with me. And I said, you know what, I can help her. I would love to I would love to help her. And especially for DevOps days, for someone to kind of come in and share a personal story with that kind of energy. I could tell that you were going to be successful as you were, which was the crowd was going to feel that energy, was going to also connect with you. And so it was amazing. And then we had some wonderful conversations as well, and relationships built backstage. So
that is true. What about you, Red?
Yeah, it's very similar to Mark because you had said that you wanted to present this thing, and I'm in the local community with the meetups and whatnot, and it's like we're always looking for great speakers. So why not? Why not help her? And if you think back a little bit, what we are as human beings is here to help each other. So that was another piece of, I didn't really think of it at the time, but really that's part of it is that we're all here to help each other grow just a little bit more every day. And as DFW Scrum likes to say, let's try to get just a little bit better today than we were yesterday. That's the only goal for today. And so that's why we're here. That's why we share. And we need these different voices. We don't need to keep hearing from the same 5 or 10 people. Let's hear all these different voices, these challenging ideas, so that we can be just a little bit better today than we were yesterday.
That's great. Well, I don't know if I have ever been officially able to thank you both for your help and support, but just having you guys as someone I could communicate with and send weekly updates to, and then the comments you'd send back about good job, Pam, and how about this, and why don't you try that? It really made a big difference to me. So I just want to thank you guys, and I hope I'm doing you proud by the stuff that you're seeing me doing, and because you knew me when I was doing any of this stuff. So I just want to make sure you guys know how much I appreciate your support and encouragement, because clearly it has changed my life. So thank you.
Yeah, seeing
Our
the
pleasure.
change in your life is thanks enough.
So
Been
tell me,
glad to follow you, and particularly on LinkedIn and seeing everything you're up to. So
well, thank you. So now I'm curious. I know we talked about who's showing up for you, but what gives you peace of mind now, Mark? What kind of renews your faith and makes you feel a little bit kind of able to be calm at times and relaxed?
it's just been my faith. I know God's in control.
Okay.
Things can get pretty scary, but for me, I have promises from Him, and that allows me to know that in the long term, everything's gonna work out. But you need to focus on doing the right things on a daily basis, and making sure that you keep your head right, and you focus on continuing to do what you're doing. You may need to change how you're doing it, but I think that whole issue of humility and service, but doing so with wisdom, where you're not being taken for a ride by others, finding that balance. I mean, that's just what you continue to do, right?
I like that. That's a good answer. What about you, Red?
I think I've been fairly upfront with people about this. About a dozen years ago, I got a cancer diagnosis, and it was the kind of get your affairs in order. You got 4 to 6 months left. That was the kind of prognosis I had.
Wow.
And so, having experienced the miracle of coming through that, leaning on my faith and leaning on the faith of the medical system. So when the doc says we need to do X, Y, and Z, it's like, okay, that sounds horrible, but all right, let's go. And having come through that, it's sort of given me a brand new way of looking at the world. We are here for just a very short moment in time.
Yeah.
So why you spend your energy on these petty little things? Let's worry about the bigger things in life. Some people refer to that as legacy. So what is it that you want to leave behind? And maybe it is touching just one person in some way. From time to time, I am surprised by the people who come forward and say, you did this for me and you really helped me. It's like, I had no idea. And so I think it's one of those things where if you just are kind and generous, then you'll sow seeds that you had absolutely no idea.
All right. I've got one more question for you. And then if you have any questions for me, I will let you ask. And otherwise, I will let you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. What would you say is your greatest inspiration? Where do you think that comes from? We'll go with you, Mark, because I can see you're trying to figure out the answer.
No. I was, it's always been thinkers that go against convention. And some of my most inspirational thinkers have been people that started out with a very different worldview than they have now.
Okay.
And someone that was an early I guess economics and philosophy guy that influenced me was Dr. Thomas Sowell. and he took a very radical Marxist view of things.
Right.
And he took an honest look at the world, and he said, "I'm wrong." And I've seen that again and again and again with philosophers that I appreciate.
Mhm.
They start with a worldview that's completely opposite of where they end up, and they're willing enough to say, I was wrong. I was thinking about this in a very different way, and I went and I looked at the world, and I did my best to be honest about what I saw, and then I'm not afraid to talk about what I see, right? And I think that that's something that is truly a foundation of Western culture. I think that that's one of the most important things that we've been brought forward as a heritage and a gift. And I think that ability to continue to come together, communicate with each other, inspire each other, love each other, and do that, with an honest look at the world around us is really important. So people who can speak, I guess, speak the truth and do that in a loving way, in a way that doesn't incite, anger, but can do so in a loving way. I think that that's something that really inspires me.
What about you, Red?
Well, I think of my two business inspirations, Walt Disney and Herb Kelleher.
Oh,
So both of them had very creative ideas. Herb said, "Well, we're going to build an airline. I don't care what the courts say. I don't care what the big airlines at the time say." And not only did he build an airline, he built a culture which endures to this day.
Yeah,
It's about
true.
the company treating the employee exceptionally so that they can in turn treat the customer exceptionally. And by the way, that results in the great stock price, not the other way around. You don't start with your stock price and go down from there. And Walt is just an amazing individual. I was only around a few years to see some of his handiwork directly, but we see the results of that. We see the 12 or so Disney parks open throughout the world where they bring so many people so much joy that the Disney parks are like 8 of the 10 most attended parks in the world. Here in the Dallas area, we've got Six Flags Over Texas. Its attendance is minuscule compared to Disneyland. And Angus Wynn, who built Six Flags, he went out to California, saw that, and said, "Wow, I can do one of these. I can probably be just as successful." He came back home, he built it, and it doesn't have nearly the character. So it's about culture. It's about the emotional feeling that's out there. It's not the steel roller coasters and whatnot, because Disneyland hardly has anything in resembling a thrill ride. But it's the other things that are brought to bear. And all that is because Walt said that these are our guests, you're the cast members. Let's create great stories that they want to relive over and over again in a family environment where they want to spend time together with each other. We can argue now that the modern corporation has made it way too expensive, but hopefully this pandemic will cause them to think twice about it.
it's great. It sounds a lot of customer first to me. That's what I hear you saying.
Yes, in both cases.
Yeah. Both of those experiences, I think, as a customer, are unique, without a doubt.
So now this is the slightly nerve-wracking part of the show where I turn it over to you to see if there's any questions you'd like to ask me, and you don't have to if you don't want to. So, Mark, is there anything you'd like to share or ask?
Pam, what are you up to these days? What's what's the big thing you're doing? And are you doing Harada classes?
I'm glad you asked. I am actually, I work for Signify Health. I'm an agile coach there, and I'm really enjoying that. And in my spare time, I do this, which is my show where I'm trying to thank the folks who really have impacted my life and helped kind of lift me up. I'm actually about to also release a podcast. So I woke up one day with another idea, and because of this whole new attitude, I'm not saying no. I'm not letting the little voices say, oh, it might not work. And so I'm just like, we're going with it. We'll see what happens.
Right.
So that should be coming out. And as far as Harada, I do have a class with the DFW ATW group that's supposed to come out, I believe, in October, September, October. So there's a plan there. But one of my goals is, now that I've got this whole platform and I've had people reach out to me, is to just break down the class into hour modules. So we'll start with the first one where I give you the standard homework, and then you bring it in, and then I teach you a little bit. We talk a little, and then I give you homework, and then you leave and you come back in a week or so. So that is my plan now, to actually create that. And now is the perfect environment, so everyone is used to doing webinars and training online now, to try to put that together. So that is a work in progress. So you guys need to ping me and say, hey, Pam, where are you in class? Because you know, when I have that accountability factor, I show up. So I don't want people who support me to be disappointed, and I don't want to disappoint myself. So that's what's in the work. All right. Did you have anything you wanted to ask, Red? Or did that cover it for you?
That pretty well covered it for me. And I was thinking about what is the coolest thing you've done in the last couple of weeks, something like that. But I'm kind of figuring, in this pandemic, cool is not what we're talking about right now.
Well, the one thing I did that I'm proud of, and it has nothing to do with work-wise, but I've had couches for the longest time that were really beaten up, and the main support beam broke. So, when you sat, you fell to the inside. It was very uncomfortable. And I finally, once things started opening up, decided I'm buying new couches. So I bought a nice sectional where you sit in the family room and it's so comfortable. And I cannot believe the joy I feel just in sitting on a couch and not, leaning forward and just being comfortable, because we have to spend so much time at home now. And so now to actually have something where I feel like this was a great investment. I'm really glad I did this. And my son loves it. He sleeps out there sometimes. He likes it so much. So, it may seem
very nice.
Just getting a couch has brought me so much joy. All right. Well, again, I just want to make sure you guys know how much I appreciate you and how grateful I am, because if it wasn't for the high level of coaching and accountability that I had, I'm pretty sure none of this would be happening. So I just hope you can look at that and say, I remember Pam when she wasn't like this. And it's nice to see that, things are going. So I just want to make sure you know how much it means to me, and to thank you.
Well, congratulations. The work is yours, although we're here to help any way we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pam, very, very excited to see you continuing this journey, and glad I can be a small part of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up.
You betcha.
Absolutely.
All right.